Are you a fawner? I know I was, and still am from time to time, but not like I used to be. What is it to fawn? To fawn is to people please. This is the fourth F that I came across in Peter Walker's book, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. And this is the fourth F of trauma responses. I didn't know about this when I wrote and released Worth the Fight in 2019. I was aware of fight, flight, freeze, but not fawn. And this opens up a whole nother dimension, and has opened up another dimension on my journey, my personal journey with my clients. This is one of the common pain points that my clients struggle with. So we're going to do a deep dive around fawning. And it's my earnest hope and prayer here that during our 10 to 20 minute daily dose here, that we can reframe this trauma response. I can give you some practical strategies for transmuting that or creating awareness around it, maybe even leveraging it, as I'm a big believer that our unprocessed traumas are our greatest hidden potential strength. I wrote about that in depth in my book, Worth the Fight, that a degree to which we lean into the darkness, the pain, the adversity, the trauma in our life is the very same degree to which we can stand and share and love in our light. So if we can do this brave inner work, we will free up that energetic bandwidth for creative vision, for nervous system regulation, for harmony, for joy, for peace, for clarity, all the things that we all want more of. So let's dive in here. Again, it was 2013 when this was wrote and released, the book by Peter Walker. It takes a minute for these things to trickle out into our collective. And here we are a decade later, a decade plus, where this is becoming more talked about, more accepted as a trauma response. To people please, to fawn is to people please. And that's to value the acceptance over our authenticity, the acceptance of others over our authenticity. To probably best sum it up is that if I make you happy, I'll be safe. But in the process, we're kind of selling ourselves out. We're betraying ourselves. We're not owning our authentic truth. We're not speaking our truth. We're eating our words. I'll be putting out a share here shortly that our unspoken words, they make us sick. Yes, we want to have discernment when we do speak our truth. And maybe there's a little bit of strategy and there's a right time to say so, because there's always consequences. I've been giving a lot of thought the last few years, Matt, just because it's true, it doesn't mean that you have to say it. Because there's a lot of things that we say, and then that's going to bring up open up a can of worms, and that could be really counter to your mission and to your service work and to your nervous system and your health and to your values and what you're aspiring to do. So, that I think there's a lot of excitement and a lot of, be authentic and speak your truth. But then also we have to be mindful when we do speak our truth, to be prepared for the potential consequences of that. I know when I first started doing medicine work and I came back and I was, I was speaking up for myself for the first time. And that was very off-putting for a lot of people. So now I think of discernment. There's a time and a place. And if someone's in a position where they can hear what I have to say, then I'll speak my truth. And if it's going to cause more trouble than it's worth, I might not say anything at all. So again, to fawn is to people please. And that's when we're prioritizing someone else's comfort over our own. And in doing so, this is a really kind of dangerous habit. And it often stems from childhood, because this is what we had to do to stay safe. We had to keep the peace. We couldn't express ourselves fully because there might have been negative consequences coming onto us. from our parents or from siblings or the environment that we were in. I think that there's a really prime example that's very topical right now, and I've been talking about a little bit about this. I'm going to be talking more about this. And I've written about this on my Flirty Fun Friday newsletter about the nice guy syndrome. And I have so many conversations with men who haven't had sex in years. There's a mental health crisis right now. Of course, women struggle with emotions as well, but I think that the suicide epidemic with men, I've heard that on the Huberman Lab. The alarm was pulled in a recent podcast, and that I think women are better with their emotions. They're better with dealing with their mental health and making the adjustments. And men in our culture, because we've been shamed since we were 5 years old to express emotions, have a really hard time with this, and thus we have a suicide tragedy. I don't know how bad the numbers are, but I know that it was bad enough where Huberman said, hey, we have a mental health crisis for men right now. And I know that there's some really troubling statistics that Dr. Scott Galloway shares. He's an NYU professor who writes a lot about what it means to be a man. In 2026, he wrote a book called Notes on Being a Man. And he talks about how men 18 to 25, 45% of them have never approached a woman romantically in person. So we're in a really tough position right now. And I know a lot of men that are older than that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, that are scared to talk to women. And they rationalize all of these different stories in their mind. And when the reality is they're scared of rejection, they're scared of putting themselves out there, and they're scared of being authentic. And the problem with this nice guy syndrome, it's an insidious program that it doesn't, women say that they want a nice man, but a nice guy doesn't polarize the feminine heart. And the opposite of nice is not being a jerk. It's being authentic. It's being real. It's being, again, authentic, speaking our truth. And that activates something in the feminine heart. Like, whoa, this guy's coming at me with some truth here. I can trust him. Instead of being a bobblehead and just saying whatever he thinks I want to hear. And so the nice guy syndrome has men cut off in friend zone, involuntarily celibate. I think that there's a term for that now. That number's growing, where people are, again, not having sex, and it's not by choice. They're not in the game. And so again, it's my earnest hope here that we can bring some awareness around this. How do we free up that energy? How do we liberate that energy of trauma into the energy of life? We can do psychedelics. The macrodose, for me, was extraordinarily powerful, getting into my nervous system to liberate the childhood sexual trauma that was at the root of my nice guy syndrome, that was at the root of my dis-ease, and to feel all that energy, to shake it out, to finish the trauma cycle, as Dr. Gabor Mate says, to liberate that energy of trauma into the energy of life, was so beneficial on my path that I ended up writing a 308-page book, and I went all in on Worth the Fight, all in on living my dream life in service to our collective awakening into this better world, more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. And I made that big shift back in 2015, and got really serious about journaling my thoughts and emotions, and being authentic, putting pen to paper with myself, and so I could again be real with what my desires were, what my values were, where I was missing the mark, how I could tighten up, and the adjustments that I needed to make. I was real about certain power dynamics that were unhealthy as I was doing, psychedelics and starting to meditate and raising my vibration and feeling so good. There were certain power dynamics in friendships that were no longer, I could see were no longer beneficial. And so I outgrew a few friends, and that was part of life. This is part of, hey, I'm down here in Florida, I'm doing my thing. I'm, again, all in on living my dream life, and making the adjustments as I see them fit. And if things are not in alignment, sometimes we have to let things go. And there was some pain with that. Letting go is hard. And, but we do the inner work, we meditate, we connect to our breath, we journal our thoughts. Again, meditation and prayer, getting out in nature, stillness out in nature, turning off the social media and having all this fractured attention. This is where we see what is our work to be done. And we can get into and start to reconnect to our intuition. And again, microdosing helps this process. Macrodosing is a turbo button. It's the reset button, and can really catalyze this journey and catalyze this awareness. And sometimes, again, this awareness is really, really uncomfortable, and we can start to see some of these patterns. And maybe now that we know that to fawn is a trauma response, that we'll be more aware of that. Again, this is sneaky. This is not something that has been established in our collective consciousness. There's many of you that might be watching this video right now on YouTube or listening via a podcast that think to be a people pleaser is to be virtuous. And that's not the case. Yeah, we want to be kind to people, but not at the expense of our own truth and our own health and our own nervous system. So there's, having discernment, having boundaries, making sure that there's something in an alignment. And when we do the practices on a daily basis, we're going to be able to tap in to whether we're in alignment or out of alignment. Because if we're out of alignment, our nervous system, our intuition is going to be chirping at us. Hey, Matt, you got to pay attention to that thing here. There's something going on here. This dynamic is not healthy. This is not aligned with your priming prosperity pathways. This is not aligned with your big goals. And this is something that you need to pay attention to. And for me, with my journaling, if I see something and it continually shows up in a pattern over the course of a few days, then I know, hey, Matt, I've got to do something. I got to say something, or I've got to make this adjustment. And without taking time to check in via meditation and my breath work, I don't know, and bravely putting pen to paper, I don't know how I would know and how I would be able to discern and how to know if I was in alignment or out of alignment. And I know you might have different practices for mindfulness. When I wrote and released Worth the Fight in 2019, to me, I was waging war on dogma. And I think dogma's got our human family, it got our nation in this big pickle that we're in right now. So find out what works for you, and to do that, there might be other ways or other strategies that you can that you utilize for cultivating awareness. Again, do that. But there are probably some stillness involved, and there's some moving your body, and there has to be some contemplation or some sort of reflection. So again, these are some strategies, hopefully that can help you see where you might be people pleasing, where you might be abandoning yourself, where you might be valuing someone else's comfort over your own. And for all of the nice guys out there, this is also an invitation for you to look within and see about this nice guy behavior. Again, there's a wonderful resource. I'm going to try to get Dr. Robert Glover on the podcast. He wrote a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And he was the one that first, put his finger on this in our collective. And this was released in 2003. And he's a psychologist that's a couples therapist, and I think he's also a dating, love, and romance and intimacy coach. And he's just got a really strong masculine presence. And again, he says the thing that has so many men cut off, stuck in friend zone, and many of them have just, again, they're involuntarily celibate, where they've just given up. And that's how hard it is in 2026 because of the social media and the dating apps, and there's just so many programs out there, and it's got me very concerned. And I'll be, again, in the coming days, weeks, months, and years, be hopefully writing more about this and creating awareness around this. And I know that I'm trying to help a lot of people here in locally in South Beach with these concepts and strategies and ideas. And hopefully you, the listener, wherever you are, might be inspired by this to examine yourself more thoroughly, so you can make some of these adjustments, so you can connect on a deeper heart and soul level. That's what this is all for. And I would love to hear your thoughts and impressions. If I missed anything, this was a new idea for me to test here on my Daily Dose 100-day podcast challenge, and something I've been thinking about and sharing with my clients for the last 6 months to a year since I came across this. And but this was fun to kind of test this idea and to work with it and to put it into action. And again, would love to hear your thoughts and impressions, and I'll be refining my thinking on this further, and probably posting and sharing more about this, as I do think this is, again, very insidious. It's in our culture, and this is one of the most common pain points that my clients struggle with. And I know that I've struggled with it immensely, and I still feel the pull to people please from time. And again, bringing myself back to my breath, back to my truth, and with the awareness practices, we can see that being authentic and speaking our truth is going to be the right move forward, as opposed to being a bobblehead people pleaser that self-abandons herself. Again, there's a lot here. I'd love to hear your thoughts and impressions. Appreciate you watching here. If you're curious about more on the Worth the Fight mission and message of hope and healing, check out worththefightbook.org. We'll see you tomorrow. Much love, and peace.